So I'd like to start the interview, Scott, by welcoming you to RaithTV, to the interview that's going to be shown at half-time of the Rovers Dunfermline game Tuesday night. And as we said before, a longer version of this will appear probably the day after the game. The full version of this interview will appear the day after the game. So,
no problem.
Yeah. So we'll start off. You're keeping busy nowadays yourself, away from football. You've got a video production company, MBP. How did you get into that line of work after football, and how's business going?
Business is going good, and it's been quite busy, even through the pandemic that's been going on as well. We've had to diversify a bit, but that's what you've got to do. I kind of got into it in Aberdeen. I was a young lad at Aberdeen, and there was a big company up there called AVC. And they used to come in, and believe it or not, and you'll understand this when I say this, is they used to try and tell us how to speak in front of the camera, because you couldn't be saying broad Aberdonian, fit like, and far Wigan and things like that. So they were helping us speak, and I just got speaking to the guys that run it, and I just got a real interest in it. And then once I stopped playing, I met my business partner. He was at one of the Player of the Year dues down in Glasgow, and he was filming. And we got chatting, and I says, I'm quite keen to get into this line of work. And he says, it'd be good to have a chat. And I was going to, I was leaving Dunfermline and going to East Fife for my final year I was playing. So I knew that by then that my body was saying, right, I've had enough. Injuries had kind of caught up with me as well. So I met Matt, and we just pushed on for there. And that was, we're almost up to 10 years now we've been going.
Wow, yeah. And in that 10 years, you started playing five-a-side football with me, which is how we know each other.
Yeah, started playing the five-a-side, charity games, but I try and help out whenever I can. It's still good. You like to keep fit. I'm no one that, like yourself, I know you are, as guys that can go out and run constantly. And unless I've got a really big game that I have to really get fit for, then I'm not a big fan of running myself. But if somebody says, do you want a game of squash? Do you want a game of tennis? Do you want a game of football? Then yeah, I'll do that every day of the week.
Good stuff. Yeah. We're going to take it right back to your early career. You started off your football apprenticeship at Shrewsbury Town. How did the move to Shropshire come about for a young lad from Linksfield Academy in Aberdeen? It's not what you'd call a Scottish football hotbed down there in Shrewsbury.
No, it's not. So what happened was I was at Aberdeen International Football Festival. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a big, really big competition, and I think the likes of Paul Gascoigne and a few other big names that came and played in it over the years as well. So we played in it with my boys club team, which was Tillydrone East End, and we actually played against a team, and they were made up of all the Shrewsbury Town apprentices, but they were playing under a different name. And then we were lucky enough, we beat them 5-4, and I got a couple of goals. And they came straight up after the game and says, how would you like to become? They were actually doing a pre-season tour up in the Highlands in the summer. So they were coming up anyway in 2 or 3 weeks just after the tournament. And they says to me, how would you like to fancy being a full-time professional football player, apprentice? And I thought, well, that's all I wanted to do. And I remember going back to my dad, and the two of us sitting and going, where's Shrewsbury? That's the first thing. I mean, I'm from Aberdeen. I was probably down to Scarborough, Great Yarmouth or something like that on holiday when I was younger, but none of us knew where Shrewsbury was. But as soon as I spoke to them, and it was actually me and one of my other friends that went down from the football club as well, John Hay, and the two of us went down. So that was kind of really good, because it meant there was somebody else with you, because, as I said, I had hardly left the house when I was younger or been anywhere. And then all of a sudden I'm going to Shrewsbury, which is like, it was about a good 7-8 hours on the train then, even again.
Of course, yeah.
Changing a crew, which was quite a scary experience as well.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, you did your apprenticeship there, and then it was time to come home. You came home first to Brecon City, and then on to your hometown team, Aberdeen. It's where you first came to the attention of Rovers and Pars fans. I certainly remember you breaking into the Aberdeen team as one of the brighter sparks, one of the younger players in a struggling side when Aberdeen finished the season in a successful playoff against the Pars to avoid relegation. Up at Aberdeen there, talk about some of the characters you mixed with and played with and trained with. There's a few with Rovers connections, like Stephen McInnesby and a few others.
Peter Heatherstone, Ray McKinnon, guys like that. I mean, but a lot of the characters. I mean, I remember when I signed, and it was I was leaving Brecon, and Brecon had agreed a fee. It was $100,000, and it took a wee while to get over the line, and we finally got it. And John Ritchie, who's sadly passed away, who was my manager at Brecon, he says to me, "Look, I'll come up with you and help you do the deal, and we'll get it sorted." And I says, "John, to be honest," and he did come up and he did help me, but at the same time, I went, "John, whatever they offer me, I'm signing for Aberdeen here. I just want to go here." But John came up and we spoke, and I sat down with Aberdeen and I signed, I think it was a 3 3/4 year deal or something, or 3.5 year deal. And I mean, walking into the changing room the next day, I was in really early. Teddy Scott, the legendary kit man as well, waiting for me. And I went in and he's going, "You're off it early, son." And I says, "I know, I'm just excited. I want to be here." And it was, he goes, "I'll introduce you, and the players will introduce themselves when they come in." And I'm like, "You don't really need to introduce yourself. I know who they all are." Like, it was Jim Bett, Alec McLeish, Stuart McKimmie, Bobby Connor, Paul Mason, Hans Hillhouse, Snelders. And then when you're saying, like myself, being a young lad, you had young lads who had just broke into the team, like Ian Jess, Gary Smith, Scott Booth, Stephen Wright, Greg Watson. I mean, it was just a team full of, especially the team was full of internationals. And then you add to that, I was a striker winger. So I remember looking around the team and thinking, how do I get a game? How do I possibly get a game in this team? You've got guys like Duncan Shearer, Hans Hillhouse, Billy Dodds, who came in, Mixie Patalainen, Paul Mason. I mean, you're just looking and every one of them are like really, really good footballers. But it was a great learning curve, and Alex Smith was brilliant with me as well. So at that time, as you know, it was the first team played on the Saturday and the reserves played on the Saturday at the opposite ground as well. So it was always good crowds, and it was always good. And a lot of the times there was pros coming back from injury, or they were left out of the first team because you're only 2 subs at that time as well. So there was a lot of pros and a lot of good players coming and playing. And what you learn from that, even 1 or 2 games with playing alongside Jim Bett or playing up front with Duncan Shearer, second to none. And that's why I was sad when the reserve league kind of got cancelled completely. I was thinking, that shouldn't happen. I think that's a big one as well that's happened over the season for Scotland as well. At international level. Yeah.
Must have been a great grounding for a young guy playing for the team he supported all his life. And then prior to that at Brecon, you must have learnt so much under John Ritchie. John Ritchie was my next door neighbour, just over there. Yeah. A lovely guy and respected throughout football in the North East and throughout Scotland, wasn't he?
That's right. Well, you had John Ritchie, who was a manager, and you also had Dick Campbell, who was his number 2. And Athol Henderson was there as well, who's at St Johnstone and that. And I mean, what I learnt off of they 3 guys was, it was second to none. And the players, we had a good wee squad. I mean, we were in the equivalent, you'll know this when I say, we were in the old championship. And we actually beat Raith Rovers. We beat Dundee. And we beat a few that, I think we drew with part of teams like that. But, I mean, we were punching well above. I think in the end we did get relegated.
Well, your time at Aberdeen came to an end, and then that's when you hove into view of Rovers fans. March 1996. If you look at the players that won the first division in the 1994 Coca-Cola Cup for the Rovers, it was all changed under manager Jimmy Thomson. The likes of Julian Broddle, Ronnie Coyle had been frozen out. Were about to move on. Sinclair, Crawford, and Dare were soon to leave for Millwall. And Colin Cameron would eventually leave for Hearts. You came in along with Peter Duffield, Greg McCulloch, Paul Bonner, Neil Kravakovic, and Steve Kirk. And you pushed the Rovers on to joint 5th, a finishing position of joint 5th in the Premier League, our highest finish since the 50s. Was it an exciting time to come to a club with a big turnover of new staff and flying high in the Premier League?
Yeah, it was really exciting. And plus we had all the plans, if you remember, in place as well for the 2 new stands that was getting built as well. So, I mean, they sold the club to me. It was Alec Penman, the chairman, and Jim McInally and Jimmy Thompson. And as soon as I seen it, I was interested. But like you say, when you come in, I'm looking and I'm thinking, build this team. Got a really good nucleus, a good squad here. you named all the guys that you named, and then you've got like Sir Tony Rougier. Try to think, you already. I think you mentioned Big Sean Dennis and that as well. But there was a really good squad, and then all of a sudden it just starts breaking up, and I'm thinking, well, I wasn't sure that this was going to happen. Do you know? Yeah. And I first got wind of it, and again, another player that was at Aberdeen, really good lad, and he was a really good player for Raith Rovers, really good player, full stop, was Peter Heatherstone. Mm. So Peter had told me that Jimmy Nick had been interested in me before he went to Millwall, and then Jimmy Thomson had obviously followed up after it, and they got me down. He says, and Peter had kind of sold the club to me as well when he was up at Aberdeen. He says, look, be a perfect place for you. A lot of younger ones, few older pros. He says, you'll fit in really good there. You'll enjoy it there. And so I was sold on it. So I came, and it was good. But as I said, when the team started splitting up straight away, I'm thinking, what's going on?
Yeah. It was just thinking back. It was a crazy time, we'd done so well to get so high in the Premier, and then Jimmy Nicholl goes and the big turnaround. As I said, we finished 5th that season. The following season, I mean, you came in as a winger striker, and the following season you were still a winger striker. The league season started with successive away games versus Rangers, and then Celtic, then a home match versus Motherwell. 3 defeats in tough matches. Did it feel like you were up against it right from day one in your first full season with the Rovers?
I think the big one, as we've spoke about already, I think it was just the change in the players. Sometimes you take a bit longer to know how everyone plays and get on with everybody, and there's wee cliques sometimes and things like that. I wasn't any of that when I was there, though, but it was really, really difficult. And at that time, as I always say to people, I like to think I played in a really good era of Scottish football. And the 3 teams that you mentioned, I mean, there weren't any mugs, Rangers, Celtic and Motherwell. Yeah. I mean, they're all very, very good teams, and they were well established in the Premier League. But no, it was hard, but we did think we could hold our own, but we just never gelled. We never gelled. That's what happens sometimes.
Yeah. And that opening run of 3 league defeats, it also brought Jimmy Thomson's time as manager to an end after only 3 games of a new season. With the benefit of hindsight, would you say that was a harsh decision to be a manager?
Yeah, I think so. Because as I said, I keep going back to it, but the nucleus of players and the players that were leaving, coming and going, I mean, to get 3 games and your friendlies at the start of the season, I mean, that's not long enough. You need at least half a season to bed in. Mm. And that's for every club. That's not just Raith Rovers, that's for bigger clubs in the Premiership down in England and that. Yeah. I mean, if you go sometimes and you get somebody for 6, I'll name one off the top of my head. I remember, like Thierry Henry, never really set anything, did he? When he first went to Arsenal, but then all of a sudden he's probably one of the best players that the Premiership ever had. Yeah. Sometimes you take a bit longer to settle in. You've got kids, you've got family, you're maybe coming down yourself. You maybe got I had a flat in Aberdeen, and I was coming down as well. But to start with, I was travelling, so I was meeting the guys at Dundee. And then in the end, when that all changed, when we moved forward a bit, when Jimmy Nick came in, and he just says, "Look, you can't be travelling like that almost every day." And I did it for about 8-9 months. Wasn't it great?
Yeah.
The travelling wasn't great, but having to listen to Tomo and Bobby Geddes in the car, oh wow,
is that
seriously.
2 goalies.
I had to pretend I was sleeping sometimes, just so I didn't have to sleep to the guys.
The classic sleeping pill, were they?
100%. Great boys, though. They were great guys. Good boys.
And after Jimmy Thomson was relieved of his duties, we had our next appointment as manager, Tommy McLean. Officially, he was in charge for 7 days and only 1 match, which was a home defeat versus Aberdeen. Initially, what did you think of the appointment? And did you have actually much to do with him in the short week he was with you? Or
it was a strange appointment, and I don't mean it in a bad way, because Tommy was good. He was a good manager, but he was still. He was having his. He was in court with Motherwell. Was it Motherwell? Is that who he was with?
Hearts.
Sorry. So he was in court with Hearts. So we were even we weren't even training during the day for the week he was in. We were training at night. So we were coming in at like 5, 6, because he would be in court or most of the days. So it was just really, really strange. But I mean, he knew his football and knew everything about it, but it was a strange, strange time. And when I seen, and I remember seeing it kind of developing, it said Dundee United will be coming out, and I thought, well, he's going to go there, isn't he?
Yeah.
Let's be obvious. We knew he was going to go there with his brother being there as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. And when it was decided that he was going to leave us and go to Tannadice, how was that communicated to the players? Did a director speak to you, or did you read about it in the paper?
We just read about it in the paper, I think, as far as I can remember.
Strange.
It just kind of happened. It was saying, he's trying to sort this out, he's here, and then all of a sudden it was bang, he's gone. And we're like, I wonder who's getting the job now.
Yeah.
And that's when it was just that whole season. We'll get on to it while we speak during, but it was a bizarre season.
Exactly, yeah. And so by mid-September, you were on to your third manager, Ian Munro, a man with a great reputation in Scottish football, highly respected coach. He'd been at Dunfermline for a good number of years under Jim Leishman. However, with all the upheaval, do you think he was on hiding to nothing to be expected to keep the Rovers in the Premier League when he came to Starks Park?
Definitely. As I said, I think it was a tough season. And as I said, I'll keep repeating myself with going back to the amount of staff that changed and the amount of players that were coming in, and players are trying to settle and trying to get to know each other, get to know each other's games, and people are playing. And I'm pretty sure that season when I had a bad injury, I know that I'd done my knee, my patella tendon, and it wasn't just me. I think we had a lot of injuries during the season as well to a lot of key players, and it was just a stop-start season. It never got going. Relegation's
never nice. It's never nice for the for the supporters. Us supporters can't even begin to imagine what it's like for the players, because ultimately you feel responsibility, but you're powerless to stop what's just occurred.
Well, that's it. You're letting down. You're letting down the fans that are paying good money to come and watch it. And we've seen with the way the pandemic is in that football without fans. I mean, everybody says it, and it's true. It's nothing. And you're just so disappointed. I mean, you don't want it on your own back anyway. But with me being an Aberdeen fan, as you've pointed out, I could see how I was feeling. Gutted, so disappointed that we got relegated. And I could just imagine fans who followed the club for 50, 60, 70, whatever amount of years, or even 5 years, 2 years, and how they felt. It must have been terrible, devastating. As you said, there's no easy thing to do when you get relegated. And I mean, it's really, really tough. And I don't think, and I'm going to maybe speaking out of turn for some players, so I don't know, but personally, I don't think some of the fans realise how bad it is for the players themselves. Yeah. And it's just something that you don't want. And unfortunately, I had it a couple of times at Dunfermline as well. So it's not a good time at all, because you do feel it. Because you feel as though you're becoming part of a club and part of someone, and you get to know everybody, and no nice feeling at all.
Yeah, exactly. And after relegation, there's the inevitable rebuild. And so at Rovers, there was another turnover in players. The Scandinavian guys had moved on, and the core of the team is now built around new signings like Guido van de Kamp, another goalie, Craig McEwen, Kevin Bibby Fotheringham, Paul Hartley, and Keith Wright. Now, Keith Wright, I interviewed him for the halftime feature against Dundee, and he was talking about the season he had back at Raith Rovers. And you joined up with people like Davy Kirkwood, Paul Brown, Danny Lennon, and Peter Duffield, who were there from the previous season. You, however, your role changed slightly, because with Paul Hartley and the Dare brothers signing, you went from being winger striker, and you played, I'm pretty much right in remembering this, the whole season at left back.
I liked playing all the different positions as well, and I got played right back at left back sometimes at Aberdeen first team. Stuart McKimmie had been injured. I actually went in. I think my first game for Aberdeen my first start was playing at right back anyway, but it was just strange because I remember phoning my dad and saying, "You'll never believe what I'm playing tomorrow." And my dad was like, what, are you dropping back to midfield? And I went, no. And he's gone, you're not in defence, are you? And I says, I'm in it. And he went, right back then, surely, or centre. And I went, nah. And he went, you're not left back. And I went, I'm left back. And he's like, oh, wow. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm thinking the same. I says, but Alex Smith and Jimmy Nick know a lot more about the game than what I did. So
yeah,
you've got to do. And as I said, it kind of ended up being something that I did throughout my career after that. And you'd rather play anywhere. If somebody says to you, do you want to play right? If I did a good run, just say left back, and then somebody says, well, I'm going to put you at right back today, I wouldn't go, well, I'm not wanting to play there. I'm doing well at left back. You just play. And that's it. You do what's best for the team, not yourself.
Yeah, you became the classic utility man. So at Rovers in that season back in the First Division, as it was called back then, you played alongside. So Paul Brown was there, and a young man that came on from the West Indies, Marvin Andrews, came into the team. When he first came in, it seemed like he couldn't get a game at first because of the fitness element, and then when he got a game, he couldn't finish a game. But did you see any sort of signs of the player that Marvin would become?
Yeah,
He played you as a 21-year-old.
You wanted Marvin your team in training, because if he didn't, there was every chance you were getting injured in some way. Because he would stand on you, he would elbow you, he would. And I mean, you've seen it, and everybody else has seen it. I mean, when he gets a run on you on the box and he's coming in, there's not much thing's going to stop Big Marv. Do you know? And he was a great character, honestly. And then, as I said to you, Jimmy Nick says to me about staying down and making sure that I wasn't travelling constantly. And I ended up in the digs right across the road, right across from Starks Park. And me and Marv ended up being in a room together, and honestly, some laughs. Great boy. Didn't like he's singing at like 6:30 in the morning when he was getting up and he was all cheery, and I'm thinking, Marv, come on, let me sleep. Got another couple of hours.
He likes a sing-song, and I didn't realise he was like that back then, you know. Yeah. In recent years, he did a bit of a sing-song on social media in his car.
That's right. Yeah, he still does it. I still give him stick for it. I still say I don't miss that days when he used to wake me at 6:30 in the morning. I think in the end, I had to ask Harry and Linda, who owned the guest house, I had to get another room. I couldn't bear it anymore.
Well, thankfully, it came to an end when former Rovers manager Bert Payton signed you for the Pars in 1998. I mean, if I were a Pars fan and this was a Pars broadcast, we could spend the next hour and a half talking about your 11 years and 300 games for Dunfermline. But rather than do that, at that time when you left us to go to the Pars, was staying at Rovers an option, or was it time for a new challenge for you as a player?
No, I'll tell you the truth about it, Neil. I actually got offered a 3-year contract, and I had accepted the contract. But what had happened was, it was just about then that the money problem started to gather. And there were certain players that never got kept. And I got told to go on holiday and everything would be fine. But when I came back, I got told that my 3-year contract was then off the table. And I was a bit baffled myself. And I remember having a conversation with Jimmy Nicholl, who was in an unfortunate position because he had to tell me. And I said, so what is it then? And he says, we can't keep you. And I said, so I've went for getting a 3-year contract to not getting offered a contract at all. Is that what you're telling me? So it was a wee bit strange. So, yeah, and you'll laugh at this as well. So it was a wee bit funny with me and Jimmy Nick kind of fell out a wee bit, but it wasn't because I knew it wasn't him. It was his decision, because I knew he wanted to sign me, as I told you earlier as well. And then, it's truth on what happens. I mean, Jimmy ends up being the number 2 at Dunfermline. But to be fair, we got on straight away, and it was brushed to the side. But no, I had agreed to sign a contract, and the contract got taken away.
I was never aware of that element of it. So you learn something new every day. In your time at the Pars, you played under 7 different managers, including some of Scottish football's biggest characters: Jim Leishman, Jimmy Calderwood, Dick Campbell, who you mentioned before. Talking about some of those managers, tell me about working with some of those managers, and also Dick Campbell. Is it any surprise that he's still a formidable force in Scottish football up there at Arbroath?
I think Dick's just got a way of finding players and building teams and knowing what he needs. Do you know that's what he's done?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll never turn around and say, and that's no disrespect to Dick, you'll never turn around and say, oh, by the way, he plays some great attractive football and does this and does. I mean, he just builds teams and he gets results, and that's what you want. And then when you're asking about the other managers, I went in obviously because Bert signed me, and I signed a 3-year deal at Dunfermline as well. And I mean, Bert was great with me. I mean, really good. And it was Bert and Dick. It was there, so Dick knew what he was getting because I'd been with him at Brecon, and he just says, "Look, you're going to play." Where you're going to play, we don't know, because you're going to be used as a utility player, more or less. So that I did. I started off the season, I think I was mostly wide right or through the middle on the very odd occasion, but I was usually used in midfield. And then it wasn't until kind of again when Jimmy Calderwood came in that I kind of went back to being a defender again.
Yeah. And Jimmy Calderwood, he was some character. I mean, we've all seen the Only an Excuse takeoff of him, and his team talks must have been something else. Were they quite interesting? His team talks
are brilliant, to be fair. And if you remember, when you see Jimmy, he used to come out after he gave your team talks, then he would come on the pitch when you were doing your warm-up before the game, and he would go around every single player, and he would tell you exactly, specifically what he wanted from you and what he expected. And it was great. And another thing with Jimmy that was good, and I'm sure it would help a few coaches as well just now, was after the games, there was never a meeting. There wasn't much said. The meetings always waited until the Monday morning. And it kind of got a bit heated and debated on a Monday morning sometimes as well. But I'm sure if it happened straight after the game, it would have been a lot worse, and things would have been said maybe that shouldn't have been said. Another thing that Jimmy brought as well, and I'm not saying it wasn't there already with Bert and Dick, because it was a good, really good family club, well-run club, Dunfermline. But Jimmy made it that he wanted all the players to stay back after the game for an hour with their family in the players' lounge. And if you didn't stay, you got fined.
You didn't stay.
But it was good though, because it meant that we all got to know each other. So we got to know each other's families, and then we'd maybe go for a meal with the couples and do stuff like that. So it was really good. And it was just, don't know if it was a Dutch thing. I'm not sure, because he'd obviously come over from Holland, but it was something that it really helped us as well, because we did become a really close-knit team.
Yeah, your career really flourished under the two Jimmies, and they made you club captain at Dunfermline in 2002. At that time, Pars had a very strong team. They had good cup runs, stayed up in the Premier League. But the strike pairing, the strike partnership that I want to focus on, obviously, Stevie Crawford, the current Pars manager, and a former Rovers player, and Craig Brewster, Rovers legend and highly esteemed striker. What was it like playing with those two guys? And what other players stuck out for you as key to the whole success of Dunfermline at that time?
It was kind of, your mindset was, if we don't lose a goal or we lose one goal, we'll get two anyway. Because outside the Old Firm, we've got the best strike pairing. And even alongside the Old Firm, we've got the best strike pairing in Scotland. Celtic had Henrik Larsson, and I think Rangers Michael Moles and people like that. I mean, these guys are on different levels. I mean, like, you've only got to look at what happened to Henrik when he left. He went to Man United and went to Barcelona. That shows the quality that you're up against. But as a pairing, they were as good as anybody in the league for 3 years anyway. And that was your mindset. Your mindset was, if you kept a clean sheet or you maybe lost one, we'll get 2 or 3 anyway. And especially at home. And teams didn't like coming to East End at that time. We made it a fortress.
Yeah. And I remember Rovers fans took a keen interest in that strike pairing because they were both former Rovers players. Yeah. Did you ever think that Craig Brewster was done out of Scottish caps, or unlucky not to get Scottish caps 100%. Like Stevie Crawford did?
100%. Yeah. And at the same time, Brew even at his age, whatever age he was when he came, I think was he 35, maybe 36 when he came to Dunfermline?
I think so, yeah,
I think he was about 35. But even then, he should have got a cap. Because let's be honest, I mean, I think it was round about Bertie Vogt's time, maybe even Bertie Vogt's time, maybe just after that. We weren't doing that great, were we?
No.
You know? And the two of them were just standing, as I said, when you're standing at the back, you're just thinking, oh, we're going to score soon. We're going to score soon. You just knew that we were going to get goals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A notable feature of that Powers team at that time was that the Dunfermline got into 3 cup finals with 2 Scottish Cup final appearances and a League Cup final versus Celtic. It was in the League Cup final that you played directly against a young man called Roy Keane. And although close to retirement himself, he still had the class of a top player. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, he's still a very good player, and you kind of look at these guys, and I remember us standing. With Alan McGregor, who played, and Big Scott Wilson, and I was having a laugh speaking to them when we were looking at Roy Keane. But he's worried about playing against us today, and you look at him, and he's just standing there like just the way Roy Keane is. He's just looking at you, and you're thinking he's going to kill anything that comes in or anything that comes within 5 yards of him.
Yeah.
But no, that Celtic team that you're speaking about, I mean, I think Dion Dublin played that day as well, if I remember right. I think he got a goal.
Yeah, he got a
goal. But they're just a class team. And when you were playing against, that's what I say. When you were playing in the Premier League at that time, that's me getting back to saying how good an era it was. I mean, every team had good players. I mean, Dundee had Kinija. Hibs had Russell Latapy and Frank Soze. Hearts had got Mickey Cameron, Paul Hartley, and they had the likes of Stefan Adam and these. I mean, every team had players. Motherwell had loads of players as well, really good footballers. Can't think of them off the top of my head, but I mean, the whole league was. You're just thinking, whoa, this is tough. But at home, we were pretty good at home. I think our home record, I know for a fact, our home record would have been a lot better than our away record.
Did you enjoy your experience of European football with the Powers?
European football was great. It was the first time we'd been back in it for many years. The only problem was, I think, was it the first game? Or was it? No, I think it might have been the second season, the second time we got into it. I actually got concussed up at Perth. So I thought we were through. And then it wasn't until the next day that I knew that we were out, and I was like, I thought we were through for some reason.
We should never bother to tell you, and you would have.
Shouldn't have told me. I should have just went and turned up and played somewhere there myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Towards the end of your Powers career, you were awarded a testimonial for your years of service to Dunfermline Athletic. Was it one of the highlights of your career to play against the likes of Ryan Giggs, Wayne Rooney, Paul Scholes at East End Park for the Powers against Man United and Sir Alex? I've seen a few photos of it, a couple of photos of it over the years. I think
you put up the odd photo now and again. I don't like to put up too much about it.
I know.
No, it was brilliant for me, and I mean even the thing Sir Alex wrote on the programme as well, saying where would you be without good professionals like Scott Thomson and things. I mean, just everything about it was just class, and it was something. I always speak to people about this. It's kind of funny because you're so glad that you've got Man United and it's your testimonial and you've been there, and at the same time on the day of the game you're thinking this is coming to an end soon, isn't it? Do you know, it's kind of mixed emotions. All my family were there to watch me as well, and it's great to have everybody at the same place. But at the same time, in your head, that's what's kind of going through your head at the same time. You're thinking, I've not got long to go. My career's coming to an end. I think by then I was 35, maybe 36, and thinking maybe got another couple of years, 2 years maybe, and then that's me, and that's what happened. But no, it was great, and he sent up the team he sent up was just unbelievable. Like you named, it was Rooney, Giggs, PK, Wes Brown, Silvestre, Van der Sar. I mean, Hargreaves played as well. I mean, the
Not
team.
a bad fives team, is it?
Not a bad fives team. I was asking to see any of them if they're over 35 soon. Most of them are, so try and get them along and play for my over 35 team. But
that would be good.
No interested just now.
Yeah. Your time at the Powers ended, and you had your year at East Fife before you finally retired. But bringing it back up to the present day. How good is it for you to see both your former clubs, Rovers and Powers, competing for playoff spots for the top league? Part of me wants both teams to be in the same league next season, so that the supporters can enjoy these occasions. Because with lockdown, very obviously, as you know, it's all behind closed doors and being watched online. Good to see the teams back and competing again, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And you're right what you're saying. I would love to see the two of them go into the Premier League as well. And to be fair, they're both that size of clubs that both deserve to be in the Premier League. Do you know? But if they have to stay, if they are both in the Championship, as you said, and the fans get back, it's great to have it. Great to have a derby. Do you know? Like if you're a Dunfermline fan, do you want to go up just now with the team that you've got, if you did get promoted, say, or even Raith Rovers, if they got promoted, then you might be coming straight back down, you know? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not an easy league. I don't think, that's another thing I would say to people, is a lot of people don't understand the step up from all the divisions. I mean, they're huge step ups. I mean, you don't all of a sudden just become a bad team overnight, but you don't all of a sudden just become a top 6 team. But sometimes that happens. It's because people don't get to know you. But usually the second or third season, as you know, it starts to get a little bit more difficult because managers and players and that get to know how you play and things like that. But I mean, it's really difficult. But if you've already said, and we both says, I would love to see the two of them back in the Premier League.
I think sentiments that I think everyone watching, tuning in and supporting both the teams can agree on. But I'd like to end by thanking you, Scott, for your time. We had a wee bit of to and fro getting this interview sorted, but I'm glad we got there in the end. And best of luck to the future for you in life and in business.
Like you says, I look forward to when things get back to some normality, getting back to the games, because I go to a lot of Raith Rovers games. I'm in the former players there, and I'm in the former players at Dunfermline, and former players at Aberdeen as well. But I go to a lot of them, obviously Dunfermline and Raith Rovers games because they're local. If Dunfermline are away from home, I'll go and watch Raith Rovers, and I look forward to going. And I'm always treated really well by the people, both stadiums. So no, long may it continue, and long may we get back to the top leagues.